There are very few franchises in the world of entertainment that carry a level of subconscious bias and expectation. A name that when spoken you immediately not only get a feel for the sort of experience that you're in for, but it also allows you to get a little bit excited about it as well. It's like Denzel Washington. You know before you get into a movie of his what you're going to get from him. You know he's a great actor, and so you can be safe in the knowledge that even if the film is trash, Denzel will still likely be great. In the world of gaming though, the name that often produces similar feelings is the name Thomas Leo Clancy Jr. We all of course know him simply as Tom Clancy. You would be hard pressed to come across someone in the gaming community that hasn't heard of that name, a name that is synonymous not just with gaming, but with film and the written word as well. Whilst the majority of releases came from either Rainbow Six or the Ghost Recon series, we did also get some other amazing and varied entries. Splinter Cell is arguably the most loved and certainly the one the fans are lusting after the most, but we also got Hawks, a jet fighter sim similar to Ace Combat, and we also got End War, a voice-controlled strategy game that, whilst innovative and interesting, never really felt like it had enough depth to give it the legs as a multi-installment series of games, and thus we got just the one. In what may well be the first in a series of videos where I look at the Tom Clancy franchise, we're going to focus on the Rainbow Six series and how it has evolved from its early days in the late 90s all the way up to the modern day and into the future. Now the reason for focusing solely on the Rainbow Six series of games is twofold. Number one, because it's the series that I spent most of my time with as I was growing up, and number two, to do a video on the entirety of Tom Clancy would be quite the undertaking. When taking fully fledged releases and DLCs into account, but not the stuff released within the umbrella of live service games and year passes, there are north of 60 releases tied to the Tom Clancy name. Rainbow Six has its roots deeply embedded into the literary world. Conceived by the aforementioned renowned techno-thriller author Tom Clancy, the franchise was born from the pages of his 1998 novel Rainbow Six, which not only became a best-selling book, but also laid the groundwork for a revolutionary new approach to a video game design. Developed initially by Red Storm Entertainment, a studio that was actually co-founded by Clancy himself, the original Rainbow Six video game released in 1998 for PC and set itself apart from other shooters of the time by introducing a highly realistic, strategy-orientated gameplay style. This marked a really significant departure from the more frenetic arcade-style shooters of the late 1990s, such as Quake, Unreal Tournament and Medal of Honor. It emphasised planning, precision and teamwork over pure reflexes and straight-up intense action. The debut game in the series introduced players to an elite multinational counter-terrorism unit known as Rainbow, composed of highly trained operatives drawn from the best special forces teams around the world. Missions were designed to reflect real-world counter-terrorism scenarios, ranging from hostage rescues to the neutralization of biological threats, all of which required careful planning, stealthy execution, and split-second decision-making. One of the most distinctive features of the original game was the mission planning phase, where players would meticulously design their team's routes, equipment loadouts, and engagement strategies using a top-down interface before entering the actual operation itself. This system underscored the importance of preparation and allowed players to approach each scenario with a methodical mindset. Combat was deadly and realistic, with no health regeneration and a very high lethality rate, fostering a strong sense of tension and immersion. Following the critical and commercial success of the first game, the franchise expanded rapidly in the years that followed. Rainbow Six Rogue Spear was a direct sequel and a significant step forward in refining the series' core gameplay. Built on an enhanced version of the original engine, Rogue Spear retained the tactical mission planning and lethal realism of its predecessor, whilst improving the graphics, the AI, and the environmental detail. Now this is where I really entered the franchise. The game introduced more sophisticated enemy behaviours, expanded weapon customization options, and greater mission variety, which included nighttime raids, snowy mountain operations, and dense urban combat scenarios. Players could now better utilise the stealth and sniping and the coordinated assaults with greater precision and responsiveness. Now, as with all games I feature on this channel, there's often a certain aspect of a game that I remember the most, whether it's a specific mode in a game that I spent a ton of time with, or maybe it's a particular character within the game, or maybe it's a time period of my life and how I played the game. For this game, I have an oddly specific one. Thinking back now, I can remember a map set on a presidential plane called 747. Hilariously later, I actually found out whilst making this particular video that this map actually inspired the plane map in Rainbow Six Siege 15 years later. but I distinctly remember playing this mission whilst listening to a particular music album. Now, I am one of these people who associate certain pieces of music with certain things. They remind me of certain people, maybe movies or TV shows, or just generally time periods of my life. But in this case, the music compilation album called Now 46 reminds me of Rainbow Six Rogue Spear. I recall playing many of the songs, including Shackles from Mary Mary and It Feels So Good by Sonic, whilst playing this map in this game. These sort of experiences are what make talking about these older games the best. Remembering specific parts of the experience, and in Rogue Spear's case, whilst I was jamming to these tunes, it was the planning of the mission and then actually watching the mission unfold without touching the keys. That's right, you could watch your soldiers carry out your orders, having planned where they move, where they breach, and which areas of the room they cover as they sweep across the map. Then, based on the success or failure of the mission, you can make small tweaks to the planning to overcome issues and find that perfect route through the map. For anyone that has played Door Kickers, this is Door Kickers in 1999. Rogue Spear also expanded the Rainbow Team roster, allowing players to select from a wider pool of operatives with varying stats and specialities. The multiplayer experience was also significantly improved, with support for both LAN and online play via the MSN Gaming Zone and GameSpy. I mean, even saying the words MSN Gaming Zone gives me a sense of nostalgia. There were competitive modes, such as cooperative missions and adversarial deathmatch style scenarios, which helped build a strong multiplayer community. The title's authenticity was praised by the fans as it continued to reject arcade mechanics in favour of a more strategic gameplay style with all of the extra realism that is associated with it. A series of expansions followed, including Urban Operations, which added challenging new maps set in real-world locations such as Kosovo and Brazil, as well as new multiplayer modes and weapons. Covert Ops Essentials blended training simulations with live missions, offering players a blend of education and execution, while Blackthorn served as a narrative continuation with further mission content and refinements. These expansions served to really enrich the Rogue Spear experience, keeping the game fresh for years beyond its release and solidifying it as one of the defining tactical shooters of its era. The success of these first two entries meant that more were always likely to follow. The nature of these games and their setting lent itself to plenty of potential opportunities for interesting and exciting stories to be told. The early 2000s saw a franchise transition into more modern territory with the release of Rainbow Six Raven Shield in 2003. Developed using Unreal Engine 2, Raven Shield offered a significant leap forward in graphics and overall polish. It successfully preserved the core gameplay principles of the series while introducing a more user-friendly interface, improved team command options, and a greater variety of weapons and equipment. Each operative could be equipped with specialized gear, allowing for more customized and strategic approaches to missions. The AI was smarter and more reactive, making enemy encounters more dynamic. The levels were more intricate with tighter interiors and varied objectives. The planning phase that I absolutely adored in Rogue Spear remained integral to the gameplay loop, allowing once again for players to set waypoints, stack up on doors and coordinate timed breaches and flashbangs. The inclusion of two official expansions, Athena's Sword and Iron Wrath, further deepened the experience. Athena's Sword introduced new European missions, classic maps and additional multiplayer content, while Iron Wrath featured new weapons, operatives and a compelling storyline focused on a rogue nuclear threat. The game once again struck a brilliant balance between tactical realism and modern shooter elements, earning high praise from critics and players alike. Rainbow Six Lockdown in 2005, though, marked a noticeable pivot point, attempting to tailor the experience to consoles by streamlining certain features. It introduced a linear narrative campaign, voiceovers, cutscenes and scripted events, diverging from this sort of open-ended mission planning fans were accustomed to in the previous entries. Operatives now had more distinct personalities and character arcs, while missions played out in more traditional shooter formats. Although the game retained some of the tactical elements, such as team commands and breaching mechanics, the level of control and depth was significantly reduced. The player's experience of the game would be different depending on which platform they played it on, with the console and PC versions differing in several ways. The main differences were the introduction of Overwatch sniper sections during missions, which was only available on consoles, and the planning phase that was only available on the PC version. By making such changes and abandoning some of its roots, it did risk upsetting some of its core audience, and unsurprisingly, the game did receive a mixed reception among longtime fans who missed the strategic depth of previous titles. But the flip side to this argument is that Lockdown succeeded in bringing Rainbow Six to a broader audience, particularly console players who are more familiar with the cinematic action-driven shooters of the time. The multiplayer modes received attention for their accessibility and fast pace, though once again some criticised the departure from the realism. Thankfully, those core fans didn't have too long to wait for the game to return back to the principles that made it so popular in the first place. Rainbow Six Critical Hour, released in 2006, was a return-to-form title aimed at Xbox users. It compiled classic missions from previous games using the Raven Shield engine and gameplay style, catering to those long-term fans that seeked that more traditional tactical experience. It emphasised the careful planning and execution, and it reinstated many mechanics that were abandoned in the lockdown game. Players once again could plan detailed routes, assign specific roles and execute synchronised takedowns. The missions featured familiar locales enhanced with updated graphics and audio. But it wasn't all good news, however. Critical Hour suffered from a limited scope, lacking in new content and depth. It was also released exclusively on the original Xbox and never saw a PC version, which limited its reach and once again cut off access for the core audience which was built on the PC. Nonetheless, for die-hard Rainbow Six veterans that were prepared to switch, Critical Hour served as a nostalgic homage to the franchise's roots, reaffirming the importance of the slow-paced, high-stakes counter-terrorism gameplay, albeit that there were barriers to entry. Then came the real transformation in this series' history. With the franchise experimenting a little with gameplay styles and narrative storytelling with different levels of realism, this series would take a drastic new direction with Rainbow Six Vegas in 2006. The franchise was completely reimagined for a new console generation and brought in cinematic storytelling, advanced graphics and refined gameplay. Set in the vibrant and chaotic city of Las Vegas, the game followed a Rainbow team led by Logan Keller as they battled a terrorist threat in iconic urban settings such as casinos, hotels and convention centers. Vegas introduced a third-person cover system, allowing players to blind fire and lean from behind walls for the first time as it strayed away from its first-person viewpoint for the first time, adding a tactical layer to combat while maintaining intensity. It also implemented a health regeneration system and simplified squad commands, appealing to both veteran fans and newcomers. The single-player campaign had really great pacing, tension, and immersion. Multiplayer featured classic Rainbow Six modes like Attack and Defend and Survival and introduced persistent character customization and progression. The game's blend of great accessibility, great action sequences, whilst maintaining a good chunk of strategy, was a critical and commercial hit, breathing new life into the franchise. Rainbow Six Vegas 2, released in 2008, very much built upon its predecessor's success with several key enhancements. It featured a new protagonist, Bishop, whose gender and appearance could be customized by the player. The game continued the Vegas storyline, intersecting events with the original and offering deeper insight into the narrative. Vegas 2 also expanded the weapon and armor customization system, introduced experience-based leveling that influenced available gear and abilities, and refined once again the AI of both enemies and your teammates. One of the most praised elements was the seamless integration of single-player and cooperative gameplay, allowing friends to join missions without interruption. This game was utterly brilliant, and even to this day it still has a real dedicated community of players using virtual network tools to create multiplayer matches both in co-op campaign and PvP multiplayer. That is a testament to just how good this game is and how much it is fondly remembered 17 years after it released. Terrorist Hunt mode also returned with improved enemy placement and dynamic difficulty scaling, making it one of the most popular ways to play it as well. Together, the two Vegas titles represented a real high point for Rainbow Six on consoles, merging the franchise's tactical roots with contemporary shooter mechanics and setting a really strong foundation for the series' next evolution. It was a huge step outside of its model, a bold jump into a new subgenre of shooters, and it absolutely nailed it. After Vegas 2, Rainbow Six experienced a significant development hiatus. Ubisoft cancelled several prototypes. The most known was a game called Rainbow Six Patriots, which promised a darker, more morally complex narrative about domestic terrorism and societal unrest. Despite a really intriguing premise, the project was eventually shelved due to changes in creative direction and gameplay standards. Speaking to Rock Paper Shotgun, technical artist Oliver Couture revealed that next-gen consoles were the primary reason behind the game's cancellation, explaining that the final straw on the already heavily worn camel's back was the need to release the game on PS4 and Xbox One. Following the Patriots cancellation, in 2015, Ubisoft Montreal unveiled Rainbow Six Siege, a revolutionary take on the franchise. Siege decided to abandon a traditional single-player campaign, focusing entirely on competitive multiplayer and cooperative play. The game introduced highly destructible environments, creating an ever-shifting battlefield, and whilst there were plenty of limited-time modes along the way, the main bulk of the gameplay centers around the intense 5v5 modes, Bomb being the most used one. An ever-expanding list of operators are available to play as on defense or attack. Each are equipped with unique gadgets and originating from global counter-terrorism units such as FBI SWAT, GIGN, SAS and the Spetsnaz, adding layers of strategic diversity. Although Siege launched with limited content and faced criticism for server stability and matchmaking, Ubisoft was committed to its long-term success. They did this through the Years system. The studio released new maps, operators, game modes and balancing patches on a seasonal basis, and the game flourished, growing from a niche release into the cornerstone of the competitive FPS genre. The game has, however, faced hurdles and obstacles along its largely successful decade-long lifespan. With the game being built with competitive gaming and esport tournaments in mind, it severely struggled in the beginning with huge, game-breaking issues plaguing the early esports events that really threatened to derail the future of this entry. Siege, though, would recover in a huge way, going from a small-time game with 14 tournaments to ones that were participated in by teams across the globe in hugely popular and profitable tournaments that pushed Siege into one of the most popular esport titles on the planet. This success bled into the non-professional scene, with general player counts climbing as high as 70 million registered players by 2020. Siege also had some contentious issues surrounding monetization, but that is a very big rabbit hole of conversation, so that is definitely one for another day. But when it was all said and done, Siege's popularity, despite its lack of traditional single-player driven campaigns, is undeniable. Whilst this game isn't for everyone and long-term hardcore fans were likely very disappointed with the direction of the franchise, from Ubisoft's perspective, it has been a monumental success. In 2022, Ubisoft introduced Rainbow Six Extraction, a co-op PvE spin-off rooted in the Outbreak event from Siege. Players teamed up to contain and neutralize parasitic alien threats in procedurally generated missions. Though Extraction retained the core gunplay and operabilities from Siege, its shift to science fiction and repetitive mission structure received mixed feedback. Still, it offered a fresh take on Rainbow Six mechanics and highlighted the flexibility that the franchise gameplay systems had, but I think it's safe to say that any fans that were hoping for a somewhat close return to form for this franchise, going back to the old school roots that made it amazing 10-15 years previous, they were likely left pretty disappointed here, and I think this game not only had a very underwhelming launch, but it very quickly faded into obscurity. Siege is still pumping out content, and with the impending release of Siege X in June, at least the Rainbow Six name does live on. Ultimately, the story of Rainbow Six reflects broader trends in the gaming industry. As the series began transitioning from slow-paced, methodical simulations to fast-paced, team-orientated and visually dynamic experiences, we have seen an industry shift that has largely followed the same path both in and outside of Ubisoft. Ghost Recon and Far Cry are examples of where Ubisoft have moved away from more linear approaches to stories to much bigger open-world experiences with varying degrees of success, and looking further afield, Call of Duty to me is the most obvious, albeit extreme, example that transitioned away from single-player campaigns to churning out much faster-paced, high-octane gameplay with many opportunities to increase their financial bottom line through those in-game purchases. And yet, at its core, if you peel away the skin of each Rainbow Six game, it has always remained committed to portraying elite tactical operations with a degree of realism and thoughtfulness rarely seen in mainstream shooters. Even with Siege, with its often wild array of gadgets, the game is a much more realistic, hardcore, strategic shooter than many of the other games available today. It is very unique in that sense. The future of the Rainbow Six franchise is unfortunately rather unknown. As the series looks ahead, its legacy is firmly established as one of innovation, adaptability and deep tactical gameplay that has captivated players for over 25 years. Siege definitely has some legs left in it, but outside of that, it remains to be seen whether this beloved series of games will ever again step outside of the boundaries that Siege has now created, outside of the comfort zone that we now find ourselves in, and wow us with another entry in this legendary franchise. Thanks everyone for watching this video on the history of the Rainbow Six franchise. Like many of you watching, I've always had a ton of fun playing these games, but let me know in the comments which one was your favourite and which one you would love to see make a return. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure to like the video, hit the sub button, ring the notification bell, as it really does help the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one.